Lesson 1. In första fågelfär i korn, I believe is the opening sentence. In första fågelfär it första korn. Almost got it. It means the early bird gets the first grain, kind of like the early bird gets the worm, that kind of thing. Also, I raised up the phone. I don't know if that's any better. There we go. That was my book. My bad. My book was in the camera. Okay, lesson 1. Title is Sailing West to Iceland, Greenland, and North America. I'm just going to read everything. I don't know if I should or not, but I think I might as well. So here's that photo that opens up with the chapter. It's very nice. Those are the routes that they took across the land. Pretty awesome. 1.1, Culture, Atlantic seafaring. All right. Medieval sailors in Northern Europe followed the coast where possible, obviously, because they didn't have these great maps. They did have maps, but their maps were more so sketches of the coastline, and then they just kind of looked at the sketch of the coastline like, okay, that mountain looks about like that. Perfect. So we're on the right way. We're on the right track. Right current. Ooh, on the right current. Anyway, from the late 700s, Norse seafarers were able to cross the open sea. The Book of Sediments, which is Landnámabók, which I do have bits and pieces of, and I could totally read some of that, records specific departure points for sailing to Iceland and Greenland. Whether permitting an east-west course, one running along a line of latitude, could be fixed by noting the height of the sun at its midday zenith. I have no idea what zenith means. I'm sure some of the comments would love to type out the definition of that because they just have it in their head. I have no idea what zenith means, though. Heading west, sailors corrected their course by sighting landmarks on the horizon, such as Shetland and the Faroe Islands. Knowledge of geography was essential, obviously. Otherwise, then they're building your own GPS inside their heads. Mariners, without maps or navigational charts, relied on personal experience and oral accounts. Super important, especially like Landnámabók, which I think I read somewhere that it is almost all oral accounts from sailors of how to get across places. But it's like secondhand. It's not written down by the sailor himself. It's written down by a person recording the sailor, if that makes any sense. When land was out of sight, the movements of the sun, winds, currents, and the North Star served as directional indicators. And of course, if they're at night, they could see the North Star, Navigational experience was crucial. Weather conditions, sea mammals, seabirds, cloud formations, wave patterns, changing currents, and watercolor indicated when land was near. I'm colorblind, so for me, watercolor probably not the best indicator. I mean, a couple days ago, I was seeing the river as red. I promise you, God did not curse the river. It didn't turn to blood. I just saw it as red, though. Oh, man. I think it was from the silt in the river, but it looked like a deep red. It's funny. And then in the far North Atlantic, light reflected by glaciers was visible from considerable distances. I wonder how far, though. I wonder what constitutes as a considerable distance. Like a couple miles, 3 miles, 10 miles? I have no idea. That actually would be an interesting thing to find out. Some Norse mariners may have relied on a navigational tool, a form of sundial that utilized the sun's shadow as cast by a central pin onto a small wooden disc with radial markings around the edge. I wonder how they counted the hours. I know that the Greeks counted within the sections, and then the Romans counted on the lines. I wonder how the Norse did it. I wonder if they did it the Roman way or the Greek way. Probably the Roman way, but I don't know. Maybe they had a different way. Part of such a device was first found in Greenland in 1948, but its use is disputed. To avoid reefs and shallows, a simple weighted rope was cast overboard to measure water depth. Cool. They probably measured it in this thing called an ul, O with tail, LL, which became modern Icelandic L. I believe it's a cubit long, which a cubit is from your elbow to the tip of your finger. Pretty sure anyway. That's a cubit. That's how they measure things. Okay. Oh, nice. Letters. 1.2 is letters. Sorry, I'm skipping a little bit of some stuff. But, well, I don't know. I guess I could read a little bit of it. Our major source of information about Norse exploration settlement in North Atlantic, which were based off Icelandic medieval writings, and including the sagas and the histories, of course. And then, which is kind of why standard Old Norse looks more like Old Icelandic, just because we have more Old Icelandic than anything else by far. At least from what I can remember, anyway. It's absolutely crazy. That's why we use Icelandic, though. And then a lot of the sagas are historical writings, or really just written down in the 1200s, even though they're based on events in the 1100s, the 1000s, and even further back, like the 900s and the 800s. Some of them are orally passed down, and then it just gets to the writer, and he's like, all right, time to write this thing down so we don't lose this. And other times it's just, from memory, like what he remembers hearing from his grandpa or his grandma, stuff like that. All right, what else do we have? 1.3 is an inflected language. An inflected language just means that parts of the words change in order to distinguish between grammatical categories. So it changes depending on gender, person, and number. For nouns, it'll change. For nouns, you have masculine, feminine, and neuter. And then those nouns decline, I think is the right word, decline, depending on the case that it takes. And we'll learn that, I think, a little bit later. Yeah, adjectives will decline depending on gender, case, and number. So the gender of the noun, the case of the noun, and the number of the noun, which would be singular or plural. They don't have dual nouns. They have dual pronouns, but not dual nouns. So that's important. Verbs will decline for person and number and tense, obviously, but not gender. So that's nice. A little bit less, I guess. Could be worse. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, cool. 1.4, starting off with a reading. Ingolf gives land to Herjolf from Grönlendinga Saga. Okay, the Old Norse reading passage below tells of Herjolf Bardarsson, Herjolfur Bardarsson, his wife Thorgerd, and their son Bjarni Herjolfsson. So that's important with last names. They always take the first name of their dad, if it's, a son. So they have Herjolf, and then they add on son, Herjolf's son. Son of Herjolf, Herjolf's son, right? That's what they do. Now, if it's a daughter, then they take, they usually still do the dad, I'm pretty sure. They still do the dad, which is paternal, that they do. Sometimes, if it benefits the person in terms of nobility, then sometimes they'll do their mother. I know there's an example of that. I forgot who it was, but he didn't take his dad's first name. He took his mom's first name because she was royal and his dad wasn't, or something like that. Oh, I really forgot though. But anyway, there's an example like that. All right. Oh, cool. Actually talks about this too. Bjarni's last name is derived from his father's first name plus son. The use of son and dóttir, son and dóttir, are discussed in lesson 3. The Saga of the Greenlanders, Grönlendinga Saga, was written in the 13th century Iceland. It was copied and preserved in the late 14th century vellum, parchment, manuscript. And parchment, here, it gives a little thing, parchment. Vellum and parchment are two words used to describe skin manuscripts. Most Icelandic manuscripts were made from calf and sheepskin. All right. Oh, cool. Oh, it was copied in the manuscript called Flateyjarbók, the Book of Flatey. This extensive compilation of Icelandic prose and poetry is so named because it was found on the island of Flatey, Flat Island, in Breiðafjörður, Broad Fjord. Modern Icelandic is, I don't even know. I don't know how to really read modern Icelandic, so I'm not going to really try. But it's Breiðafjörður, I'm assuming. I'm not really sure. I think that's how you say it. All right, and it's in Western Iceland. Flateyjarbók is the largest Icelandic manuscript, consisting of 225 large sheets. That's a lot. That's a huge book. I forgot how big a large sheet is, but I think a large sheet, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, is about the size of this page. That's a large sheet. So 225 of those. And they're thick, too, you know. This sheep and calf skin. Wow, that's a lot, too, actually. What would that be? Probably about, you know, that's just how thick it would be, almost anyway. Yeah, about how thick it would be just with these pages, 225 pages, ish. Not exactly, but you get the idea. All right, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. All right, let's get to reading, shall we? Grönlendinga Saga, kapituli 2. Herjólfur var Barðarson, Herjólfssonar, han var frände Ingolfs landnámsmans. Ingolfur gav Herjólfi land, Amlivags och Reykjanes. Herjólfur bjó fyrsta Drepstokki. Þorgerður hét kona hans, en Bjarni sonur þeirra, och var eifnilirgur maður. And this would translate to Herjolf was the son of Bard, and then in brackets, who was the son of Herjolf. So we put in brackets, the stuff in brackets just means that we had to add in some words because it doesn't make any sense. If you were to translate it literally, it'd be Herjolf was son of Bard. So Herjolf was the son of Bard. Now you can leave it as Herjolf's son, or you can say who was the son of Herjolf. There's different ways of translating. As long as it makes sense to you, you've translated it right. If you're translating for other people, you have to make sure that the general public could understand. My style of translation is pretty literal, and I understand how to read it, and I understand what's going on. Even if I have to do some mental gymnastics in my mind, I still understand it. Would it be easier if I just translated it, the way I thought, the way I'm understanding it? Obviously, but I like seeing the words and what they mean more directly. So that's something I do. Anyway, Herjolf was the son of Bard, who was the son of Herjolf. He was Olaf does not have what is it called? Does not have, is it indefinite or definite? Does not have indefinite articles. So a, an. Old English and Gothic also don't have that. That's actually, from what I remember, a pretty recent development. So he was a kinsman of Ingolf the settler. Ingolf gave land to Herjolf between Vag and Reykjanes. Herjolf lived first at Drepstok. Thorgerd was his wife's name, and Bjarni was the name of their son, and he was a promising man. Now, the reason he is in brackets and it's not in the Old Norse is because the subject can be inferred. We already know we're talking about Bjarni, and so in their minds, why would you put han, which is he, why would you put that if we already know we're talking about Bjarni? So they didn't do that. That's why they have that there. And sometimes they'll also take out verbs, if you can assume what the verb would be, such as in the final sentence. Þorgerður hét kona hans. Thorgerd was his wife's name. En Bjarni sonur þeirra, which would be and Bjarni, their son, or you could say and Bjarni was the name of their son. Og var eifnilígur maður. And was a promising man. And he was a promising man because we already know the subject. You can put that back into English if you want. I think it still makes sense, even if you don't have he in there. But if you need to, go ahead. If that's how you understand it, great. That means you translate it right. All right. And they have some vocabulary in here too. I guess we could go over stuff that has... Here, let me show you. Here, right in there. Let me see if you guys can see that. Okay, so the stuff that has like the diamond by it, those 4 diamonds, those are words that are part of the 256 most common words that account for 90% of the sagas. It's a pretty big amount, and that's including them in compound words and all of that. I think he actually gives the number at the back. Don't remember though. He might though. Nah, that's alright. He doesn't. Alright. I think it's 90%. It's maybe lower, maybe higher. But anyway, those words would be a, which is a preposition, and in this case, it takes the object in the dative. In this case, now it would, except this time. Oh no! Wait, where is it? Where is a at? We have a milli. Oh yeah, there it is. A drepstokke. A drepstokke. So long A, drepstokke. On drepstok. At drepstok. In drepstok. Usually, they're going to use E for in and A for on or upon. And that's usually what it's going to be. Of course, A can also mean at, at drepstok. It doesn't really make much sense if you say Herjolf lived first on drepstok. Doesn't make much sense. So you could say in drepstok or at drepstok. However it makes sense to you, that's good with me. Bjo is the past tense of bua, and bua just means to live. Okay, bjo of course means lived. Okay, what else do we have? En, E-N. Oh, I forgot to say, bjo is B-J long O, bjo. And then en is E-N, it's a conjunction, it means but, or in a contrastive sense. So you're comparing and contrasting means and. So in this case, it would mean and. Of course, you could probably translate as but as well if you want. And then frende is kinsman. Not necessarily a friend, but a kinsman. And let's see. Oh yeah, han is he, H-A-N-N, han. Kona is wife or woman. Land is land. What else do we have? Mother is man. Milli means between. And that preposition takes its noun in the genitive. So when it says a milli wags, or wags, yeah, a milli wags, it's milli changes wag to wags. Takes it into the genitive, so it adds on that S. We have ok, okay, it's a conjunction, it means and, ok. Then we have sonur, which means son, and that is it. Oh, okay, wagr, it's wagr, and wagr means bay. Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, and then 1.5 is just the audio lessons that Jesse Albiak has for these. 1.6 talks about 246 most common words. Okay, my bad, 246. These 246 most frequent words make up more than 80% of all the words in the sagas. That's a massive amount. 80%. That's pretty good. The 70 most frequently used words account for nearly 450,000 of the 750,000 total words, or 60%. Just the 70 most frequent. That's pretty impressive. And I think he's actually working on a book that details the 1,000 most common, which is 90+%. Yeah, absolutely insane. All right, cool. All right, 1.7. Here's the word frequency of vocabulary list 1. So these are some of the words that he gives. And he says, these few words alone comprise 34% of all words in the sagas. So these are, starting with nouns, mother, konungur, and skip. And my brother will put those up there for you. Mother, M-A-L-R, mother, konungur, K-O-N-U-N-G-R, which means king, and skip, S-K-I-P, ship. Next, we move on to the adjectives, which are mikil, M-I-K-I-L-L, margar, many, M-A-R-G-R, godr, G long O, ev R, means good. Then we have the pronouns, sa, which means that, it's more like that one. Then we have han, which means he, or masculine it. So say you say, like wager, right? It's a masculine noun. So if you say, wager is, obviously this is with an American accent, okay? I'm not trying to get all Norse right now. Just figure it out quick. Wager is great. So then, wager is great. And then you could say, it is beautiful. It is a pronoun. It's replacing wager, right? So now we would use han for that. It means he, and it also means masculine it. So that's something important to understand when translating. I've made the mistake too. I've translated han, or however it's declined in that instance, as he, and then it's like, oh, not really he. You don't say he was beautiful. That doesn't make any sense. You say it was beautiful because it's talking about a bay, even though it's a masculine noun. Then he gives us a numeral, ein, which means one, ein. Copy to the ein, chapter 1, ein, E-I-N-N. Then he gives us some verbs, vera, halva, segja. To be, to have, to say. So prepositions, till, e, a, to, and as an adjective, or as an adverb, it also can mean the other two, T-O-O, also, to. Then e is in or into, and a is on or onto or upon. Then he gives us some conjunctions, which are ok and at. Ok is and at is that. All right, very nice. That's our first vocabulary list. Let's see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Wow, there are 15 more sections to this lesson. I think I'm going to stop right there with that vocabulary list, and then I'll pick back up on part 2 of lesson 1. Let me know if you guys are liking it. It's been a while since I've done this, like a very long time, like 4 months since I've gone through this book, so it's a good refresher for me too. It's crazy. All right. So there you go. I got some words to practice. Practice saying them out loud. The best way to learn an ancient language is to read out loud, okay? It's good to hear yourself say the words, and it's good to watch your mouth move when you say it, which sounds kind of weird, but it's true. And then just practice that, a lot. Get those words down. I mean, by that point, you'd already have 34% of the words memorized, for the sagas, which is just insane. And I do agree, they're super common words, especially madr and sa. Granted, you're not going to see the word mother, it's because they decline, so they'll be changing. So like you'll see mother, you may see monum, you may see mans or men or man or anything really, in any way that mother declines. Same thing with vera, it means to be, and we all know that to be verbs always have a lot of forms to them. So that one changes a lot. Prepositions thankfully don't change. I know that, I think it's in the Celtic languages, they do change. They do conjugate or decline depending on the noun that they're taking an object of, which is crazy. Gender, I think. Anyway. Yeah, all right. I'll see you guys in part 2. There might even be a part 3 just because there are so many sections to it. It looks like once we get to 1.14 is when we start getting to the exercises. So I'm actually pretty excited for that too because it's great. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.